Alright, today's lesson we're going to create a vector image, which means we're going to be creating some shapes using some shape tools. To get started, we're going to click on New Project, and I would like this to be a 5 by 7 inch project because we're going to be creating a greeting card. So in the default categories here, if you click on Photo, you'll have the option for 5 by 7 inches. This is the size that I want to use. That's a common size for cards. So here it for some reason displays in millimeters. If you want to verify, you can click to inches. It will be 5 by 7. And then we always want to choose 300 pixels per inch. That's standard print quality. And then we can click Create. So here's our canvas to begin with. I'm going to import my inspiration image. You don't have to do this step, but you'll click File, Open in Place if you want to add an image. And I'm going to find the screenshot that I took earlier. I believe it's this one. Nope, it's this one. Okay. So this is the inspiration image that I'm going to use for this project. So we're going to use the shape tools to create, not exactly this, but a lot of these shapes that you see on here, we'll try to recreate them. So to begin with, we're going to start with a very simple shape, this rectangle. So the shape tools are found on the left with the tools. Usually this is displayed as the rectangle tool. This is a basic shape tool. So we're going to get started with this one. With the rectangle tool selected, if you'll go to your work area, you'll click and hold and then drag diagonally away from your original click point, and then release the click to create your shape. So I've created my first rectangle. Now I want this to be a dark blue, so I'm going to change the color. You can either do that before you create the shape or after. I'll show you how to do it after. So here, if you're in a shape tool, you will have the option for fill color. If you're not on a shape tool, just like this, so you can't change the color unless you're on a shape tool. Then you have the fill option. And I can click on the fill color, click on the current icon here, and you'll get the color picker. Then you can choose a color. I want blue. Kind of a darker blue. Okay, so that's one way to change the color. A quick way to change the color is to click the icon for the shape layer, and that brings up the color picker. And if I wanted to copy a color, so I could choose my own color here, but if you have a reference color like I do, you can simply hover over it and click on it, and it's going to color match. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK to accept that color. Okay, so now I'm going to hide my screenshot image so I can see the shape that I created. So there's that shape. If you, for some reason, were not successful in doing that, you want to make sure that the settings at the top are set to create a shape and not a path. That it is set to have a fill color and not none. So if no fill color is selected, it will be transparent, so you won't be able to see anything. See, there's nothing there. So you want to make sure that you have it set to a color. Stroke is just an outline if you wanted to add an outline, and then the size of the stroke. And then the next thing we'll want to focus on as we create new shapes is, in general, you'll probably want to leave this as a new layer, meaning every shape that you make will have its own layer. So you're not going to be joining shapes together. Alright, so next we're going to try to create this trunk here. So the tree trunk, it's a rectangle shape, so I'm going to click somewhere up here to make sure that's hidden by the tree, and then make sure that's also long enough to be hidden by the gift, and then release. So now I have my tree trunk, but it's obviously in the wrong spot and the wrong color. So we've learned how to change color. I'm going to go ahead and double click the shape after I create it, and then I can reference the color here since it's in my work area, or you could choose whatever shade that you want. And then I need to reposition it. So with the move tool, you can hover over it, and if you don't get the option to move it, and rather you're like resizing it, then you may need to zoom in so that you can get the option to move the object. Again, with my move tool, I always like to have the transform controls enabled, so I'll go ahead and click the check mark. So on my move tool, I have transform controls enabled. That gives us the opportunity to resize or rotate an image simply by selecting it. And then on my shapes, you'll see I can modify the height and the width separately, so I can stretch it out. Sometimes you'll see that this link is connected, so the height and width are locked in ratio together. So now if I try to change one, it will also increase the other. So that's just an option you may want to enable or disable, where the height and width are linked together. I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark to accept that. And the next thing I want to do is make sure that this is hidden under the layer for the gift. And I'm going to go ahead and rename these so I know which one is which. So to rename a layer, you simply click on the layer name twice. So quickly click 2 times. So this is my tree trunk. So I'm just going to name it trunk. And then this first shape is my gift box. So I'm just going to name that gift. So that is just an example of how you can organize your layers and give them labels. So I need to move the trunk underneath the gift so that it's hidden. Alright, now we're going to move to a more advanced tool. So far we've learned how to create our basic shape. We have rectangles. And then in the shape tool we also have the option to make circles or ellipses, ovals. There's a line tool, which any line is basically an elongated rectangle. So I don't recommend using this unless you are making a lot of lines in your project. And then you have parametric shapes, which are your polygons. And then you have custom shapes, which a lot of my students like to use because it's kind of like cheating. With this one selected, you can click the option for shapes. It's going to load all the pre-loaded shapes in here. And then all of these you can use in your creations here. But I'm going to encourage you not to use these to begin with until you get the handle on how to use the shape tools. But I am going to try to find one specific shape if we can use it. Looking for like a bow of some sort that we could put on our gift. I'm not seeing it. I did see something similar to what was in there, some sort of plant shape. See if I can find it again. I'm not seeing it. So obviously there's tons of shapes. Let me just grab a random shape here to use to show as an example. Let's do shamrock. Sure. So let's say I wanted to have a shamrock on my gift for some reason. So to draw the shape, again, just like you did the rectangle, you click and drag diagonally away and release to create the shape. So, and then I'm going to change the color and make this some sort of gold color. Maybe this is a Notre Dame fan. And then we'll move that onto the gift just to give you an example of how to use the custom shapes tool. And then the next tool that we're going to use is the more advanced tool to use to create these shapes for our tree. So the tool that I'm going to choose to use is the pen tool. The pen tool is a freehand tool. The first option is the classic tool, and we're going to use that one. Free pen is for like freehand drawing a shape. You know, if I just wanted to draw a simple shape, there's a shape. But the problem with that is most people, when they're drawing on the screen, it just ends up looking really bad. So we're going to use the pen tool, and I'll show you how to use this on this first tree layer here. So I imagine that I want to overlap the snow layer over this tree layer. So on purpose, I'm going to be drawing it up above here. So I'm going to start my shapes by simply clicking. Oh, first of all, let's discuss the options at the top. So first, you want to make sure you're making a shape and not just a path. the fill color won't matter for now. And then you want to make sure that this is set to create a new layer and not be united with current shape. So I'm going to go ahead and click new layer. And now I'm going to click somewhere over here where I imagine the shape is going to end. And then I'm going to click over here. I've created a straight line. So a shape has to have 3 lines to make a 2-dimensional region. So the next line that I create, I want to have it curve a little bit. So you can see this has a little bit of a curve. So if you want to curve a line, you have to click and hold and then drag out what are called these little handles. Now these handles have a gravitational pull to them. So it's going to pull the line behind it, and the intensity of the curve depends on the length of the handle, and then the direction is the direction of the handle. So in general, you want to place your handles in the direction that you're drawing, so something like this. And then I want to continue curving. I'm going to click and place another curve right there, and then I have a very sharp curve here, so this is going to be very small. So I'm going to click here, just add a little small handle there. So then I'm going to click over here and create another handle. Click over here, drag out some handles here. So it's not exactly the same as you see in the example, but we're getting the same kind of concept here. And generally speaking, the fewer handles that you have, the fewer little curved points, the smoother your curve is going to look. So I'm on purpose kind of skipping over and finding a spot over here to try to match the curve. That was a bad placement. So if you ever find yourself making a bad decision on where to place your points, you can always do Control Z, and that will take you back to redo your previous point. So there, I got that. Again, it's not going to be exact. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and try to finish this shape. So as you get into smaller curves, you'll want smaller handles and tighter points together. Let me zoom out. So now I have a couple more points. I'm going to put one point here to kind of straighten out the line, and then connect the dot to close the shape. So here's my example shape, and then the inspiration that you see if I hide it. It's very similar, and this does take a lot of practice, so your first shape is probably going to look really bad. So don't be too hard on yourself. Again, this is practice, so just try your best, and don't get too frustrated if it doesn't turn out correctly. It will get better with practice. So there's one shape. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my tool is still set to create new shapes. So it's a new layer. I'm going to create one snow layer to show you the next layer. So my snow layer, I'm going to go in the similar direction. So I want my snow layer to be hidden, so I'm going to go ahead and click up here to start, and then just create a straight line across to this point. I'm going to hide my previous shape so I can kind of use the example here that I have. I'm going to click here and drag out some handles, then click here, and you can see as I'm creating the shape, it's already filling it in, so I can't see my inspiration. So if at any point that becomes frustrating to you, you can quickly just go up here and turn your fill color off, makes it transparent. Now I can see what's behind me. I can continue trying to trace it with the tool. Again, you can really be extreme in some of these curves. So you don't need as many points if you use the handles to kind of draw out the curve. Okay, there's that one. I need one more point. So the end of your curves, let me go ahead and undo that for a second. So I want to leave some room here. That handle is way too long. We go ahead and undo the previous one too. Go ahead and just make some shorter handles here. All right. So if you ever want to change directions, you'll need to create a point close to your previous handle and then create a straighter line. So changing directions is a little bit tricky with this tool, and there is a way to get rid of handles, but that's really advanced. We're not going to go into that in this lesson. So again, just try your best. Now I have a closed shape, but it's transparent, so I'm going to go ahead and change the fill color back on. And then I'm going to change the colors of the layers. So obviously I want this to be blue. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. Let's pick a different shade of blue in the dark family here. And then I want this shape to be white. So I'm going to go ahead and just change the color to white. And then if I hide my layers, because I have a background layer that's white, the snow's not going to show up on it. But you can see if I hide my inspiration, this is the shape that I have so far. So it's not exact, but it's similar. And you can see that even though I know how to use this tool, it's still not perfect. This is a quick just tutorial, so don't be too hard on yourself. Again, just play around with it, and the goal of this is to practice. So you can see how with that technique I could add more and more layers to create my tree. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. So let's add in some text layers. So the text layers are going to be at the bottom of our card here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the type tool. We've used this tool in the past, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how to use it. So select it, and at the top you have the options for the font style. We want this to be sort of like a handwritten, so I'm going to show you how to narrow down. Right here you have all the different fonts. There's probably thousands of them. There's so many. So if you want to narrow down the categories, if you click on this button here, you get options. Not going to let me do it now. Let me go ahead and click that, click it again. There we go. You can click where it says all to deselect them. And then I want to focus on hand-drawn and script. Those are the two that I want to focus in on. And now that list is going to provide me with all the hand-drawn options. So I'm going to just choose one quickly that I see that might look good on this card. And then click in my work area to place my first text layer. So I'm going to be typing Christmas, and your size probably is going to be small. So let's go back down to 24-ish, I think is the default. So as you're typing, it's going to be extremely small. This might not even be visible. So if that happens, don't panic. Just type something in and then press the check mark to accept the text. And then we're going to go in and edit the text. So obviously it's too small. So I'm going to go ahead and double click the icon with the big T. That selects all the text. Another way to select is to have the type tool on. If you hover over the word and double click, you can get inside the text as well. So with the text selected, let's go ahead and change the size to increase it. You can click the arrow and use the slider there if you want to. You can type in a number if you know approximately what size you want it to be, or you can hover over the word size, click there and scrub to the right or left to increase or decrease the size. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then the other thing you'll want to check while you have your text selected is the fill color for the text. So you can change that here. I'm going to have mine be, let's see, some really light, nothing, let's go maybe in the green family. Oh, that looks good. Something like that. Okay. So once you have the text in, you can move it around with the move tool. And then I need another text layer for wishes. And then I want this to be a different color. So let me go ahead and double click and change the color. Let's have this be, let's do dark brownish color. Something like that. Okay. Again, you can change the size and placement, clicking the move tool. All right, so if I hide my inspiration image, this is what I have so far. Now to add some interest in the background, I'm going to actually change my background color. So I don't want my background color to be white, but I need to have a background. So there's two ways to do that. You can change this layer color by selecting the layer, going to Edit, Fill, choosing Custom from the options, and then you get color options. If you click on this little icon, you can go to the color picker and choose a color. That's one way to change your background. Another way is to simply add a large rectangle and use that shape as a background. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the shape tools and choose rectangle, and make sure I draw a rectangle over the entire project area. And then I'm going to double click the shape icon to get the color picker, and now I can just choose whatever background color I want. And the nice thing about this is it's quick and easy. It's a one step to get to the color picker, and then I can change back and forth to see what colors look good. It just saves some time. All right, next I want to add a mountain of snow in the background. That's going to help things to stand out better. So here, this is white. So that's what I'm trying to copy the idea for. So I'm going to go back to the pen tool, and I'm going to just create like a random mountain of snow here. It's good practice for creating curves because it doesn't have to be exact. I'm on purpose going outside of the work area to close my shape so that make sure that it's nice and large enough to fill the area that I want it to. And so this shape is hidden. Actually, it's just the same color as my background, so it looks like it's transparent, but it's really not. So I'm going to go ahead and double click and change the fill color to white. So there's one mountain. I'm going to go ahead and use the same technique to create another mountain behind it. So make sure it's set to new layer. So the next time I click, it's going to create a new shape. Now, all of this is hidden, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like until I get about right here. There we go. Close the shape. And then I want to change this color, do something like that. And then I want the white to be the top layer. So these two need to be reversed. So we're already getting quite a good concept for a Christmas card. I'm not going to finish out the tree, but you can imagine how that would look when it's done. So next, I want to add just a little bit of details. My inspiration image, you can see there's little dots of snow in the tree, and also kind of like glittery stuff happening in the background. You could also add like a star shape to the top of the tree if you want to. But just as a simple example, I'm going to draw some circles. So let me go ahead and zoom in here. Let's say I want a couple of specks of snow on this tree layer that I created. So I'm going to go back to my shape tool and choose ellipse. And I'm going to make some small shapes. So I'm just going to create small circles. There's one. There's another one. And there's another one. And they're hidden because I have my screen thing enabled, and it's also all these shapes were made 7, 8, and 9. We go ahead and select them. They need to be moved up above the tree layer so they're visible. So right now they're hidden behind the tree layer. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that they're above it. Let me see which shows shape number 2 is my bottom tree layer. So those circles need to be above it in order to be visible. And again, this is where organizing things, naming them, would give it so you know what's happening in your layers and where to place stuff. It might be best to layer some stuff. Name it. So on and so forth. You get the idea. So in your project, I expect to see the use of your basic shape tools, which are rectangle and circle. I want to see you use the pin tool to create these advanced shapes. And if you're not comfortable using curves, at least try your best. So here's an example of the way that you could make shape 2 in a more simple way. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, click here, click here. At this point I'm just creating straight lines, but so instead of creating curvy lines, I just created a bunch of straight lines. Then I can go ahead and change the color. So you can see that's that shape. And then shape 2 looks like this. So it's similar, it's not the same, but at least you're learning how to create your own shapes using the pen tool. So I also want you to add some font. So use the type tool to create something, some sort of message. You can use the custom shapes tool sparingly. So I don't want to see your entire project using custom shapes. That in my mind is kind of like cheating. And then make sure that you've created a nice background. You can create a shape for the entire background and then just add some layer dimensions by creating like these little mountain images in the background. So the goal is to be creative, practice using the tools, and then we're going to move on for you to create your own card next time we're together. That's it.